From the AP. Wisconsin Attorney General files felony charges against attorney's aide who worked for Trump in 2020. Part of me actually kind of finds this very funny because this is Kenneth Cheseborough being charged, Jim Trupis and Mike Roman. I can't speak for Mike Roman, but Kenneth Cheseborough pleaded guilty in Georgia on similar charges and then implicated Trump. And so I'm just like, yo, if you betray someone and then more bad things come your way, don't expect any sympathy from me. This is why the lowest level of hell, was it the ninth?
I think it's the ninth plane of hell, yeah.
It's reserved for traitors and the disloyal, and rightly so. So it's funny watching like Jenna Ellis, talk about Trump or whatever, and like she has some critical comments about something. I tweeted facetiously, I hope Trump goes to jail, and then I commented in a video game. I'm like just trolling. And it's kind of a neutral statement because if Trump goes to jail, his polls go up, his donations go up. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, whatever. Literally, we don't want him to go to jail. And then she made some comment like, these people are so dumb. And I'm like, lady, you cried on TV and blamed Trump for everything. These people deserve prison. And I hope nobody backs them up. However, in all seriousness, Wisconsin is now adding to criminal charges of Trump's lawyers. So understand where we are as a country. Joe Biden is granting amnesty to non-citizens. And regardless of your position, maybe you were for open borders. Well, it has to be done through the will of the people and the law. Congress is how we implement these things. Well, here you go. I don't know what comes next. I mean, they're trying to shut down Alex Jones's show. He's got 2 weeks. They're attacking media. They're arresting lawyers. They're trying to imprison the front runner for the presidency. I do not see a reality where things get, let's just call it lighter. I certainly think the actions they're taking are indicative of us gaining ground and winning. When you watch UFC fighters jump up and meet Trump, Aaron Rodgers, everybody's shaking his hand. They love the guy. Trump raising $200 and some odd million in a few days, record breaking.
TikTok account growing to
millions.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Insane.
What is he at now? 5-something million or more. So the death throes of the political establishment will not be pretty. I hope Trump wins because it will still be dark, but the night is always darkest before the dawn. And then we can start repairing and fixing these things, maybe bring this country back from oblivion.
Think about what it's going to be like should Trump win. There's going to be a lot of pushback by people that are currently working for the government. And I'm not sure what that looks like. But things have been crazy, man. Do
you think the American people are tired of these cases? Like all of these cases of them, the ones in Arizona or the ones in Georgia or the one in Wisconsin now. Like, do you think the American voter, the average American voter, is like, this is really making a big difference for me? Or do you think it's just sort of political vendetta?
I don't think the average American voter knows exactly how much lawfare is going on right now. I think they probably know that Trump's in court, and they probably know one or two. Most likely, the New York and the classified documents cases, or in my sense, that those are the ones that they know most about. They might have confused or combined the Stormy Daniels and and also the real estate stuff. Yeah. They might have combined all that into one thing in their head because it's happening in New York. So if you've got, just a bird's eye view or whatever, checking in every once in a while, it's like, oh, the New York one, oh, the DC one. I don't think they realize how bad things are. And I think the average person, if they actually look into it, I think that they'll be like, yo, that seems messed up. At the very least, they'll be like, I may not be a lawyer, but that seems wrong. I feel like that's the sense people would have.
In every conflict, in every country, most people don't care. Name a conflict in history, people don't care. People care about where's the food coming from. When they wake up, what am I having for breakfast? Revolutions start when food prices are too high, not when politicians are involved in scandals. So right now, the real crisis is political instability combined with a crumbling economy. What they're doing with the border is exacerbating the economic crisis, seemingly intentionally. I think, I look at what the Biden administration is doing as the cartoon where, Goofy or whatever's on the boat and a hole pops and he's, and then he puts his finger in it and another hole pops and he puts his finger in it and then he puts his toe in it. they can't control what's going on. They're trying to maintain their international liberal economic order power, and they can't. So they are effectively just breaking the system instead of, I look at it this way. Donald Trump, his plans and policies will probably result in Americans working harder, but having more and having security along with what they have. The Democrat uniparty policy was bomb other countries, establish petrodollar dominance, and then we can keep printing dollars forever, and our economy will be strong because we have guns pointed at everybody. That's not working. It's been faltering for the past 20 or so years, getting worse and worse and worse with Iraq and Afghanistan, and now today with Ukraine. It is failing. I look at it and I'm thinking, Donald Trump's probably got it right. Secure the border, bring our jobs back, start producing things at home, because we are not going to maintain the liberal economic order anymore. The United States does not produce enough to maintain its economic standards. If you go the Biden path, the hegemonic power of the United States crumbles. Ukraine lost. It's hilarious how bad they're losing. The Red Sea, all of these things lost. And then you have crumbled infrastructure, no means of starting up your economy again. You go with Trump, you secure the border, you bring factories back, you bring jobs back, you start developing chips. Now, I know Joe Biden also has made moves for the CHIPS Act, Arizona, et cetera. Trump got rid of TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. Start focusing on this country, working to protect its people and finding jobs, improving our culture, educating young people. And then when the liberal economic order collapses, and it will, we will be safe, secure, and producing things that generate value and keep our economy healthy.
Yeah, I'm with you on the importance of the kitchen table issue compared to almost any of this other stuff to the average voter. But I mean, the people that pay attention, I know Blue Dog Democrats, Hannah Claire, to your point, that like they say, why does this keep happening? Like I don't like Trump, but let's just let it play out. And that's not, the hardcore base necessarily. But, this is a generation that watched James Clapper lie under oath about NSA data collection and watched, Sandy Berger stuff documents from the National Archives down his pants and get off on probation. Like they know, some people know that there's something wrong with
those people. There's like 7 of them. Like, not kidding around. Most people, like, think about man on the street stuff. That's 95% of America.
No, I agree with you on that.
But
there are the remnant that does.
When it comes to the people that are politically aware, yes, there are some, and this audience obviously is more politically aware than the average. YouTube has more politically aware people than the rest of, than other social media sites. That doesn't mean that there are enough to make a difference, because there aren't. Because if there were, they'd have done it, right? Like, I love a lot of libertarian ideas and stuff like that, but the Libertarian Party hasn't done anything. The closest thing they've done is got Donald Trump to look at him and be like, hey, you guys have some ideas that I could work with if you'll vote for me. And then what did they do? They flipped him off because they don't like winning. They like showing off that they don't like the government. That's what they are there for. So
I mean, that there's no chance that Ross is going to get off then, or that he'll put libertarians in his cabinet as he elects.
Trump will.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that Trump would do all those things. There's zero drawback for him to not do them, or to do them. There's no political negativity. He doesn't have to worry about a second term. He doesn't like the intelligence apparatus at all, so he doesn't respect that stuff. He'll be like, if it pisses him off, I'm into it. There's no reason for him to not. Now, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that he will or that he can, but he has done more to make overtures towards libertarians than any actual presidential candidate, save for the man Ron Paul himself. Like, who else has done it that didn't run, that hasn't been running for the libertarians? He's made overtures. Yeah. Look, I love Angela's idea. If you're in a blue state, vote for Chase. Right.
Well, I was just going to say, does that lead you to believe, to grant some credence to Angela and perhaps the Libertarian Party spearheading this thing if that gets consummated, potentially? And I'm not sure it is, to be clear, but I hope so.
If you are a Mises libertarian in a blue state, vote Trump. If you're a woke progressive, I don't care who you vote for.
That's fair.
I want to speculate a little bit
No, vote Trump either way. If I can convince at least one woke person to vote Trump, I guess, or whatever.
I want to speculate a little bit about which libertarian Trump would put in his cabinet, because I think there are some registered Republicans, but like Thomas Massie is a libertarian, right? Would he be? Is this who we're talking about? I'm curious to know who this libertarian is, because I agree with you. I think Donald Trump would come through, but I want to know who it is.
I think that if the Libertarian Party is smart, they would get Justin Amash or someone like that. Most likely Justin, because he's trying to get into the Senate anyways, right? He's running through going.
Do you know what position you'd want to see him in terms of the cabinet, or like?
I would love to see him. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what would be best, but I mean, Trump's talking about getting rid of the Department of Education, so I don't care. Like, if you put him in HUD, put him in, I don't care where. It doesn't really matter, because what I want them to do is strangle the life out of wherever they're working, right? I want them to.
But who is the target here in terms of like restricting their progress?
If Donald Trump actually would get rid of the Department of Education, like you said, then that would mean that one's off the table, because that one's just going to be gone. So great, thumbs up.
Check that off the list.
Check that off the list.
I'm most skeptical of that one.
I mean, look, we can be skeptical all day, but again, these are the best options ever offered to libertarians in history. These are the most.
This is the issue I have with. I think libertarians and communists have one thing in common: they believe in a utopian reality that can't exist.
Yeah.
And
they're dreamers.
And I often hear that's not real libertarianism. Look, I do. It's like, hey, a massive private company took over our parking, and we already got a super chat like Hal Gailey saying that's a corporation. It's the state who. No. It's a private entity that takes the cars away, and there is no government enforcement against them. A private tow truck comes and takes my car, and then I say, how do I stop that from happening? And they say, shut up.
Well, if they breach the contract, you can take them to court.
Oh, wow. I got the money for that.
I mean, it's the same follies happen regardless of, the solution, I think.
Agreed. So at least there's a constitution within government and limits and oversight, which grants me some protection from nefarious private actors.
But nothing's more utopian than saying that that's consistently applied, and we see it in the Trump case. No, you didn't. You didn't, Tim. But I'm just saying that there's problems with, from the utopian perspective, by thinking like limited government, is going to continually limit itself because the words on the parchment.
The issue is this. The point I'm bringing up is Donald Trump, no new wars. Donald Trump timeline for withdrawing our troops in the Middle East. Donald Trump tried to get our troops out of Syria. He was lied to, and they maintained our troop presence in there. Donald Trump also made mistakes. Firing 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria was stupid. They targeted an airport, and Syria had forewarning that it was going to happen, so I don't think there was any injuries, which was a weird, stupid thing. They say Donald Trump increased drone strikes. Well, yeah, as you're withdrawing your troop presence and you want to maintain security, you're going to use drones, and that's a good short-term answer to pulling our troops out. Donald Trump negotiating peace agreements in the Middle East. Donald Trump negotiating peace with North Korea. And then I talk to libertarians, and they're booing and screaming and smashing the wall saying Trump bad. And I'm like, dude, if you want to live in a utopia where an empire built over 100 years is dismantled in 2 seconds, go play Civilization, enter in a console command that disables empire and dissolves one of your enemy nations. If you want to live in the real world, you have to recognize that the best thing we've gotten in 40 years in terms of ending war has been Donald Trump. And there are libertarians who are like, no, boo. And I'm like, okay, then live in your utopia and win nothing. And that's what we get. Nothing. So that's why I'm like, Chase Oliver, that was hilarious. The Libertarian Party has done so well with under Angela with the rise of the Mises Caucus. But this one was just said, I guess I could ask for nothing more because this means the Mises libertarians are probably voting for Trump. So I'll take it.
You're a Mises guy, right?
Hardcore, yeah.
Okay, so can you explain what happened with your presidential pick this year?
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Alas.
Oh, wait, with the presidential pick, or are you asking what happened to get Chase Oliver?
Yeah, how did we get to Chase Oliver?
Yeah, I'll try to make it as succinct as possible. A lot of people were on board with Dave Smith. For a while, Dave Smith was openly flirting on running. And he's since, said, I apologize for bowing out. It's a family decision. I'm going to respect that about him. But Mises took it within their own gumption to explore some other candidates. The who's who gamut of the biggest libertarians in the country were talked to, I know, by Michael Heiss, the chair of the Mises Caucus. And eventually Michael Rechtenwald agreed to do this. He was one of the prominent libertarians that agreed to do this. He's an expert on DEI, ESG, et cetera. I think he's been here talking to you guys. And it was basically old Garders generally supporting Chase. That's very simplistic. There were other candidates involved. And the hardcore Mises people supporting Rechtenwald. It went through 8 rounds, I believe. And the third place guy, Mike Termott, made a deal with Chase Oliver to be his vice president and essentially throw his endorsement behind him. It moved enough of the room.
To be fair, I mean, Rechtenwald, I don't understand why he was the choice. Why was he the Mises choice?
Many alternatives were talked to and turned it down, and he was considered one of the most prominent ones that were considered for it. He's an expert in several fields. He's brilliant on wokeness, DEI, ESG, stuff like that.
Can you maybe tell me why Chase Oliver was appealing to the old guard of libertarians? Because it's interesting to me that, like, I know it was kind of contentious this year, but you reelected Angela, the Mises chair, which is fascinating. But then still you're saying, ultimately there were enough people supporting non-Mises candidates to pick this guy. He's definitely not someone I would pick, but obviously I'm not a member of the party. I don't know what the internal workings like.
No, I can totally understand that confusion. It's a few things. One of it is that the presidential race ended very late in the night on the last Sunday night when many Mises people had gone home. It looked like attrition hurt us more than the opponents that we kind of waged this.
So like actual Mises delegates didn't vote?
Some of them didn't because some of them went home. They had plane tickets that were going home.
Oh my God.
We tried to tell people stay till Monday. We kept saying it. And then another reason is that Angela actually has, you wouldn't know it from Twitter all the time, but she has a broad amount of appeal from a lot of what we call friendlies or people that are kind of indisposed. So I can understand the confusion behind that. The difference there.
Yeah, because I definitely feel like the things that I've heard about the Libertarian Party is definitely this embracing of the Mises caucus, but it is interesting that then you have this guy who I don't think is very representational of that segment of the party. But it does speak to the fact that Libertarian as a party actually has to bridge a greater divide ideologically than maybe other Republicans or Green Party or whatever else.
The Libertarians nominated the pro-vaccine mandate guy.
I don't know if he ever explicitly said that, but he did push COVID propaganda at the height of the COVID regime.
He said he opposes the government mandating it, but he's for businesses being allowed to mandate. And anybody who's paying attention would know that anybody who has a memory, the mandates were actually private. So it was actually by choice. Many venues, many businesses were choosing vaccine mandates. There were health guidelines that were never enforced. You couldn't sue the government for it. The private businesses would just say, no, we require it because we choose to. So I actually don't think that should be allowed. So that's why I'm not libertarian. I think there should be public agreements as to if you're going to occupy space that is shared by people and provide a service, you can't arbitrarily ban people and create things like, and this is exactly why. We don't want to live in a world where people form coalitions and then decide, we're all private entities and we hereby agree, libertarians, anybody who supports Mises, anybody who supports Rothbard, you cannot buy burgers from our restaurants, you cannot use our trains, you cannot use our buses. I'm like, no, that's going to create conflict and violence. We should not allow arbitrary distinctions like that. It should be, you can kick anybody out if they're causing a disturbance, if they're violent, if they're refusing to pay, call police, we'll figure it out. But the idea that we allowed private entities to mandate a medical procedure, and it was private. It was all private.
Well, a lot of it was forced by the hand of government, let's be clear, or caused in lieu of the government propaganda being pushed, and then those businesses adapted to that propaganda. A lot of it does have its root in the state and Fauci and the NIH.
Private music venues is a really great example. We're choosing the bands. And it wasn't because the states were forcing them to do it. So when Chase says, I don't think the government should mandate it, but private businesses can, I'm like, okay, then New York locks down. Because what happens is Antifa goes around, smashes windows and says, why aren't you mandating vaccines? And then every business says, we'll do whatever you say.
Also, you'll have people saying, if you don't have a mandate, then you're going to be in an actionable position. I can sue you if I get sick. And as soon as that comes on the table, everyone locks down.
But it's that is still a function of the state, the fear that there will be action. But you take a look at cultural forces that I think that we want to restrict. Colbert going on his show and doing segments called The Vaccine, mocking and belittling, and you ended up with private actors choosing to lock down. So I say no, you can't mandate medical procedures these are violations. But libertarians, I feel that many of them are very much the same as communists in that, and I do agree with a lot of like the actual intelligent, well-read libertarians. The Ron Paul libertarians tend to get it more correctly, but the other libertarians who nominate people like Chase are, I am completely okay with oppression, suppression, and violence so long as it comes from private actors, and that's it. It's like, okay, well, like, I'm not okay with that. I don't think we should allow private entities to abuse and control people. When you have like 3 big companies in one area, and then they all start, locking people out in some way, this is what we have government going with antitrust and start breaking these things up to prevent them from doing these things, suppressing, oppressing, and overcharging and manipulating people. There we go. Problem solved.
I mean, we
figured it all out.
It
happens sometimes in this.
That's the problem with libertarian. I love libertarianism as a philosophy or as an idea, but it runs into reality, and essentially, this is the same ideas that the framers of the Constitution struggled with. They said things like, if men were angels, then government would be unnecessary, and that's a true thing. The point was, look, we consider government a necessary evil, and so that was very foundational to the U.S. But the problem is, you've got a situation where the tension now is between people that think that the government is. People that think the government that we have, which is the largest government in human history, they think that it doesn't have enough power and it doesn't have enough reach. Mm-hmm. So I love libertarian ideas, but we got a long way to go before we start to get towards libertarian ideas.
I think the libertarian ideas of like sound currency and ending foreign wars are good ideas, but I think the general, absolute privatization makes literally no sense. I accept that when you decentralize a system and you go into private markets, you have less corruption, but the coalescing of power happens rapidly, and then you end up with a different kind of government. So the benefit to decentralizing is that you get a period of competition, which improves things, and then you end up with a monopoly again in the end because power coalesces, regardless of whether it's government or not. Like I said, fire departments didn't used to be public, they were private, but then eventually ubiquity turned them public. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.